Nothing there. What's going on? Hey guys, another episode of the Real Deal Landman Show. It is I, Drew Hopkins, with another just so lucky to be in studio again in Oklahoma again. Jerris Johnson.
You feel lucky.
I feel like in the contract that you and I signed, we only had to see each other and be in the same room one time per year, and this is already absolutely breaking.
I know.
Right?
I know. You asked you asked me why I was back. The answer is I never left. I've just been here. The last time we recorded, you left the whole building. It was Thanksgiving holiday, and you locked up, and there was no way to get out.
Just no way to get out. Jerris just alone with your thoughts.
Yes.
Thinking of all the things to be thankful for. Well, did you have a good Thanksgiving holiday?
I did. I spent time in Edmond, time in Enid, and time in Jet. You familiar with Jet? Oh yeah, I drove through Nash, which I know you know.
We've got farmland in Nash.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, spent an afternoon in Jet.
How many people do you have? How many people do you still have family in Enid?
Thousands. No, in Enid. So my mom lives in Enid. My father-in-law lives in Enid, and then my sister. I have a sister who lives in Waukomis.
Okay.
If you know Waukomis. Sure. And then I've got a sister who lives in Edmond, and then my dad lives in Jet.
I didn't even know your dad lived in Jet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I've got family members that are building a house in Jet right now.
Really?
On the old family farmland.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
I'll invite your dad out for dinner. I don't know.
I'm sure he would hate that.
Man, yeah. I need to go back out to Jet, which is not something that anybody says too often.
No, it's shocking how many people don't know where Jet is.
The Great Salt Plains of Oklahoma is definitely something to be experienced. My dad would always say, or he would threaten that was what my next birthday was going to be. He'd be like, "Oh, we're going to go dig salt crystals on your birthday." And for like the first few years, I was like, "Oh, that sounds really fun."
Yeah.
And then we'd go out there, and the times that we did dig salt crystals, I was like, not the greatest, but...
How many times have you cut your hands?
Lots.
Yeah.
No, that's something you kind of get, but you don't expect that's something that's going to happen.
Actually, just this morning, I was talking with somebody, and I mentioned Great Salt Plains, and he said, I've never been to Great Salt Plains. And I said, oh, well, you should go. He's like, well, I want to take my kids. And I said, well, bring Band-Aids, because you will slice yourself on the quote-unquote crystals.
That's exactly right. The crystals aren't like the best payoff either. Like you do those, and you're like, I don't know what I was expecting, but this wasn't it.
Yeah, a piece of fake glass with dirt in the middle of it. Is all that it is.
That's exactly right. No, Jet is definitely something to be experienced. My dad, and he had 5 brothers, 2 sisters. They had the Hopkins pig farm, which was right on the outside of town.
Okay.
And they were there long enough to remember whenever it was the Salt Plains was a bombing run.
Yes.
They would actually...
Hence the name.
Jet. Right? I mean, there it is. We've got the Jet on the side right by the high school. I mean...
Yeah.
Don't know how they landed it there, but they did.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking Oklahoma. That's our guest today. Oklahoma City. Back in Oklahoma City, a lot of history in Oklahoma City, some cool stuff that has happened. Did you ever read the book Boomtown?
I did.
So, Boomtown is what it's called, but it actually has its full name is, where is it? Its full name is Boomtown, the Fantastical Saga of Oklahoma City, its chaotic founding, its apocalyptic weather, its purloined basketball team, and the dream of becoming a world-class metropolis.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Anyways, it's an awesome book. Came out several years ago. It centers around Oklahoma City Thunder and talking about the Thunder and the relation of Oklahoma City and how it got started and famous people that are from it. And cool. It is pretty cool. So you grew up where? Ponca City. I grew up in Enid. Now, when you were coming here, what was it called?
This was Oklahoma City was 100% known as the city.
The city. That's
how you do it. No matter where you were in Oklahoma.
No, it's
going to the city. That wasn't Tulsa. That wasn't Edmond. That wasn't anything else. That was Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it was the city. Like if you said the city. So what kind of stuff would you come to the city for when you were a kid growing up? What do you think of?
So being from Ponca City, right? Ponca City was, and I think we talked about it on an earlier episode of big oil and gas town, Ponca City, and still has the ConocoPhillips refinery there. The main thing in Ponca was Lou Wentz and E.W. Marlins, and those were kind of the two energy names that we knew. And growing up, they had a finger on everything in the city. I mean, there's the two Marlin Mansion, there's the Wentz Golf Course. It was all built by oil and gas. And growing up there, I think a lot of us didn't really understand how much of an influence it had. But whenever we got a little older, like high school age, and we started really understanding like that most everybody's parents were a part of Conoco. And then either they were jumping on the plane and they were going down to Bartlesville, or they were going over to Houston or something like that. Whenever we would come to the city, we would see that on a much bigger level. We'd see Carnegie, we'd see all the different companies downtown. And it was really kind of a cool thing to come down for.
Yeah.
You get to see your city just on a much bigger basis. And that was back in like the late 80s, early 90s, when it wasn't anything like what it is today.
No. Well, your family was clearly far more sophisticated than my family was.
Doubtful.
No, you were. So you're talking about all this cool cultural, economic heritage. We came to the city for furniture shopping and vehicle shopping. Okay. Never bought anything. That was just what my parents called a good time on a Saturday. Come on, kids, we're going furniture shopping.
To drive some cars around and then go straight back to Enid.
Yeah, that was about it.
I remember what we would come down for. We'd go to Penn Square Mall. Was a big deal. That was a really big deal. It's very out in the middle of nowhere, too.
Yeah, we did. It's not. Which one has the glass? That's Quail Springs Mall, right? That has the glass elevator.
That was
Penn Square. Penn Square. Yeah, that's what we did. We rode the glass elevator once.
I'm telling you,
that was our good time.
That was absolutely big time. We'd come down on like school trips.
Okay,
and we would play sports versus some of the teams down here, and I can't for the life of me remember who we were playing, but we were unfortunately like 6A. Like Ponca City was
6A. No way.
It was. And so we would actually play a lot of teams from the Tulsa area.
Yeah.
And so it would be Ponca versus, like, let's just say Tulsa Union in football.
Ouch.
Which would be a absolute just
massacre? Bloodbath?
Just absolutely
shellacking,
if you will. Yes. We were out of our league for sure. But it was kind of cool to go to these different places, get to go to Tulsa a lot, get to come down every once in a while to Oklahoma City, and just kind of experience something we never thought. We were like a little small podunk town. I don't necessarily know that we were, but we were a lot smaller than these other groups.
Yeah, you were.
It was something.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember when Bricktown started becoming a thing. Yep. And it was like Spaghetti Warehouse was the focal point and landmark of Bricktown.
Did you take the little boat tour and they were telling you everything that was going to happen?
No.
Oh, we totally did that.
I already told you our family fun and what we could afford was to ride the glass elevator. There's no chance we were taking a cruise.
I remember we went down and we were not one of the first people, but definitely in the first 6 months that they had the water taxis open.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember getting on that, and much like what you said, the spaghetti factory was like the only thing, but it was, let's say, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile of riding this boat of nothing.
Right.
And they would be like, and over there, they're probably going to put, I don't know, a hotel or something.
And in Olive Garden.
We were so, excited for that. But it was really just this muddy little river that would just go down and back. And that was still pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So before Devon Tower, remember there being no Devon Tower? By the way, you can see the Devon Tower with their blue lights that they have on the top of it now.
It's pretty cool. They did upgrade the lighting, and it looks pretty awesome. And I mean, and again, I know everybody's kind of made it like a laughable thing, but the 110-story building or whatever they're talking about building down here.
What?
Yeah. Oh, don't act like you haven't heard.
I don't live here anymore.
So the plan is, and this is just a recap for all of the viewers who either know about this or don't.
The viewer.
The one viewer, yes. So it's a 100 plus story building that would just absolutely eclipse. I think it is 2.5 times the Devon Tower. Very tall, very slender.
Okay.
You know, two smaller buildings that are like 25 to 30 stories on either side of it. That would be, I think, hotel, living space, just kind of the multi-use.
Okay.
But I think it's one of those things where they have to fill the first two smaller buildings before they're able to build the other one. But permits and everything went through. So it's actually pretty interesting. It's definitely a good read online. Much like everything else, people very polarized both ways on it.
Okay.
But, it would definitely shake up the Oklahoma City sky.
It would be massive. That'd be massive. And then the Thunder are supposed to get a new arena, right?
That's right. Everything has been filed, and it looks like I think that's going to be in the 28-29 season. Is
okay. Wow, that's same.
So I could be wrong about that, though.
So I moved out of Oklahoma City at the end of 2014, and even just in the last 10 years, I'm shocked at the downtown landscape.
So it
totally different.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
it definitely.
It's fantastic. Like, it's a place people should definitely come and visit and spend time in. Go to a Thunder game. It's awesome environment. Feel some wind.
Those are the two things.
Yeah, those are the two things.
To kind of your point beforehand is like growing up in Ponca and seeing like the Marland influence there.
Yeah,
growing up in Enid, because that was where Harold had it, Continental, before they moved to Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did you see a lot of influence of what he was doing there?
So not much. There were two companies. I mean, there were three. I don't know. There's multiple companies in Enid. So in the early 80s, Champlin was the big one.
Okay.
And there was a Champlin mansion that was in Enid, and there was a refinery actually outside of Enid that Champlin had. And then the Air Force Base there is obviously huge influence still today for an economic driver. And then Continental Resources was coming about in the 90s, and then obviously into the later 2000s when it went public, etc. It was a big company. But Ward Petroleum would be a big one that had its name on everything. They were like community sponsors on a bunch of stuff, and that was probably the name that people were most familiar with.
That's cool.
There was a time, though, I think, when Harold Hamm was worth, I don't know, there's a memory that I have, I want to say like 2008, 2009-ish, when he was worth probably $16 billion and was still living in Enid. And my guess is 99% of the people in Enid had no idea there was a multi-billionaire that was living there. And
there's some really nice areas. I mean, all of the little towns, be it Oklahoma, anywhere, there's some really cool little old neighborhoods that were built back up, and you can definitely see some influence of who the people were that kind of started those communities.
Yeah, and oil and gas was a heavy factor into most of those towns in terms of the wealth that came about, and those towns saw booms and busts. Enid had a huge bust in the early 80s. If it wasn't for the Air Force Base that was there, who knows what would have happened in the town, to be honest. Yeah. And then here in Oklahoma City, obviously, we've seen big wealth and big names that have come about. Everything that Aubrey McClendon did with Chesapeake, and we talked about Sandridge when Kosho was on here, and now Continental Resources is located here, and then Devon and its growth that it's had, owning and operating the massive building that is downtown. I mean, there's a lot of history. 1928, I think, was the Oklahoma City oil field, so we'll be coming up on the centennial of that.
That's cool.
Yep. Do you know when Oklahoma City started or founded? What would you say was the big event that kicked it off?
It had to be the land run.
It was the land run, right? 1889, which was, for a while, we used the 89 theme for a while. The Oklahoma City 89ers, the baseball team. And then I remember on Lake Hefner Parkway, I want to say there was a water tower there for years. They had Olympic trials that had happened here, and there was a big OK 89 with Olympic symbol stuff in the middle of it. Remember that? Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's exciting for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting to see, and just going to the boomtown and seeing that influence that we're saying even on the small towns and everything. But I came down here in 2000 for college, and that was right around whenever like Bricktown, like you were saying, was just trying to get going.
So you moved to the city,
I moved to
right?
the
You
city.
moved to the city.
That's right. No arena downtown at that
Yeah.
point. I mean, it really was very, very vacant, but it was all of the influences of as the Chesapeakes, the Devons, the Continentals, and everything, as everything was starting to come in. And Oklahoma City was really making a run with the MAPS programs
Yep.
and everything else. They were like, we don't want to just be like a little one-stop shop
Right.
where people come in and ride a glass elevator.
Yeah.
We want people to move here. We want people to, build out it to become a tourist destination. Like we want things. And it was great seeing it, and I mean, still seeing. They're still working on building it up, and like it's amazing. But it's to have a stadium built, and now that stadium is too dilapidated and old to house the team. In my lifetime,
Oh,
makes
yeah.
me feel so insanely old.
Yeah.
It's a miserable feeling.
So people, I mean, I assume that most people who live here know the story. There might be a lot of people who live here, though, or live outside who have no idea how did a small market like Oklahoma City get what is arguably right now this season the best basketball team in the league. And
So exciting.
and the story being Hurricane Katrina.
That's right.
Kicked it all off. So Katrina happened. The New Orleans Hornets needed a place to play. They came to Oklahoma City, and unbeknownst to everybody, total shock to everybody, the huge fan base. Like everybody just thought that Oklahoma was college football. That's all it was college football.
That's right.
People came out, was selling out the arena to watch New Orleans Hornets games.
Lose?
Yeah, to watch them lose.
People were excited to
Yeah.
watch them lose, like we're losing our minds.
And you remember, so Chris Paul was there, and he became a spokesperson for Chesapeake and was like the hometown hero, even though he wasn't really part of this town. I mean, the team was just here on loan. But it was that like kicked it off to get the masterminds behind bringing an NBA team to Oklahoma City. And I mean, if you've never been to one of those games, it is a full experience from the beginning to the end. Like Oklahoma City fans do not leave early. They're there the entire game. They're standing up, they're cheering. It's a really, really fun environment. It's been totally awesome for the city and for the state in general.
It really has. The only thing I think, I don't want to say suffered, but the thing that kind of suffered was people in Oklahoma were really big in on OU basketball and Oklahoma City.
Okay, yeah.
And we're talking like Gallagher, Iba, and Stillwater. That same was selling out every single game of the season, and they were like so incredibly good.
Yeah.
Just like every year they were top 10 for sure. And then the Thunder come in, and now all of a sudden a lot of these businesses and everything that had been buying, seats for their employees.
Sure.
And people would say, well, I'm going to get season tickets again this year. Well, now it's an NBA team. It's a little bit. People are like, well, I would, but I'm probably going to go to the city.
Right.
Watch the Thunder play. And so I think college teams have suffered a little bit with that, but it's still done fantastic with like other college sports.
And I think the minor league baseball took a big hit.
It did.
From
it definitely
did. But it is fun. It is fun. Yeah, no, I mean, just all the memories about coming down to the city. So one landmark that I hear everybody our age talk about that I never experienced was Crystal's Pizza.
I think I've had that in college a couple times, but yeah.
So you can't say that you were tired. My wife talks about it all the time. That's like her connection with people she knows who, when she hears of somebody growing up in Oklahoma City or coming to the city, they would connect on.
Was they just in Oklahoma City thing?
I think so. I don't know.
Somebody out there can give us a note in the comments and tell us where Crystals was and what year they might have gone out.
I don't know. In Oklahoma City had a Casa Bonita.
They did.
In fact, Denver has resurrected their Casa Bonita. It's insanely expensive to go there now.
That's like the third worst like Mexican food you're probably gonna get.
It was one of those things where as a kid it was magical. Raise the flag and food just shows up. Yeah. And then I went back as an adult And my wife and I went on a date there in Tulsa, and this is not what I remember. And then we took our kids there in the Denver one right before it closed, and it was like
a little rough.
So we're talking about Oklahoma City. One, it's fun because we're here, right? We're here live, and we both have memories of coming here. But I think it's kind of interesting that the book, again, I recommend the Boomtown book, loosely tied to the fact that the Landman TV show is based off of a podcast also called Boomtown. So the podcast one is Boomtown, one word. The Oklahoma City book is Boomtown, 2 words, which has reference to, if you remember from the book, from the supersonic jets that they would fly over Oklahoma City.
That's right. I actually read about that not too long ago, like within the last year, about how it would break out the windows for buildings downtown.
Oklahoma City wanted some way to gain popularity, and so when they were looking for test subjects flying supersonic over a city, Oklahoma City's like, yeah, we'll do it. I think it lasted a month and was causing so many health problems and property damage.
At one point, I think we were throwing all the pickles at the window just to see what would slide down.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm glad that wasn't the thing that lasted.
Yeah. No, it's a good place. But yeah, you've got the Boomtown book, Boomtown podcast, which leads us to the TV show. So
the TV show, episode 4. Holy cow. Here we are back again talking about another episode of Landman. Oh man. So when it started out this week, and the opening shot right whenever we're out of the gate is a Pilates class between Angela and her daughter in the living room while Nate looks on. I was like, we're really in for a treat.
Yeah. Highly relevant to the entire story.
And then right after that, we get Pilates for a few minutes, and then straight to the Landman title screen. And I was like, there it is.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Buckle up. Here we go. In this episode, like, this was just one of those ones. I did see the API commercials, the American Petroleum Institute.
You're seeing those again?
Saw those. We had 3 of them this time. Which I don't know if it's got to be just a geo thing, right?
Could be. Yeah, if you're watching, maybe that is. Maybe that's.
I'm not mentioning it for any other reason, just besides, I don't know how much they put into those. I don't know how many people that are watching outside of the oil and gas business actually care about seeing that.
Well, they care deeply.
I just, when it comes out and they're like, I just want you to know, nothing exciting really happens in the oil and gas. Just, it's a boring day's work. We're going to show these people sitting here. That throughout the episode, we get it. The oil and gas industry, not as exciting as what we're putting out on this show, but good that they're getting exposure, right?
So, Thanksgiving, we just had Thanksgiving. You saw some family. Anybody talk about the show or like ask you about your thoughts on it or how your real life compares to Tommy Norris's life?
You know, we actually did talk about it, and we got a couple aunts and uncles that were saying that they had watched it too, and they were like, you know, we knew there was a lot going on with the oil and gas industry, but is this how is this representation? You know, like what you've done? And I was like, I've never seen anything explode in the field. I've never been out in the field for anything other than just like rig tours or kind of boring, you know, episodes. But I do think that the main thing out of it was it's really cool, just exposure. And aside from talking to me every once in a while on how's your job going, they really didn't have any intricate knowledge of even how wells were, I mean, honestly, how wells were even drilled.
Sure.
And to be able to see like shots of the Permian and to be able to see, you know, they really do a good job of being able to show some different field shots.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of cool to see people that never had that experience before taking a look now and taking interest in it, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that.
That's cool. Nice.
First thing in the show, Rachel is defending Tommy in a deposition, right? And she kind of goes through the motions. She turns out she's a pretty darn good lawyer. She takes the other guys to task, takes them in, gets them to settle pretty quickly. Right?
Would you say this is representative of a typical deposition? Have you ever been deposed?
Oh, I have. Yes, I was. And
okay.
It was, it was years ago. I was probably mid-20s. I was scared out of my mind whenever it happened.
Uh-oh.
Just absolutely scared out of my mind. But it was a really good experience. The being able to work with the company and being able to understand like kind of the process and how questions were going to be asked. How I'm one of those people where I just want to just like on this show, I just want to talk. I want to make the other person like be like, oh yeah, like these are the questions you asked me. Let me give you the full scoop, you know, and to be able to actually understand the kind of art of being able to do that correctly. There is definitely something to be said for having a good legal team.
Okay.
You know?
So did you have Rachel as your lawyer or somebody Rachel-esque as your lawyer?
I would 100% say the people that we had were very Rachel-esque. They knew exactly every bit. They had absorbed every bit of the case. They knew my role in it. They knew what could be asked, what couldn't be asked. And it made what I will say in early 20s as a very like nervous experience, made it a heck of a lot easier when you're with people that are of the professional mindset that can help walk you through this a lot easier. So not as bad leaving it as I thought it would be.
So if you had one piece of advice that you would give to anyone who may have a deposition coming up, what would you tell them to do?
Be brief.
Yeah. Don't talk too much.
Yeah, don't talk too much.
No. Answer the question.
Very easy
and then
way
shut up.
You can answer and just you're done with it.
Yes.
You know, and that's I really do think that would be the thing that would end up, especially in my 20s, getting me in trouble of me just wanting to talk just for the sake of it.
Because you want to be helpful.
I want to be helpful. Always want to be helpful. Not in a deposition. Don't be helpful.
Yeah, no.
Don't be helpful.
No. Answer the question. Shut up.
It's that's no. Were you ever deposed?
I have been. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I really the attorneys that deal with that on a daily basis, they are incredibly skilled to be able to do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So Rachel does this. They basically end up winning it or just getting everything dropped, and immediately Tommy is
from a deposition. Got everything
right.
dropped.
Got everything dropped from a deposition, which a little odd. But it's like 10 in the morning. He's typical Tommy, ready to go drink.
That's right.
Invites her out. Let's go to the bar, and she kind of reluctantly accepts. Go back. Angela and Ainsley, the mother-daughter combination, mother of the year. She's like, you know what? It is also 10 o'clock. We should be drinking as well. So this family almost shares the same hive mind at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, they're all kind of cut from the same cloth. Let's go out. So they try to go a country club, and that kind of moves that going forward.
Is it fair to inform those who are not familiar with Landman to say that not every family with the Landman in it begins drinking at 10 a.m. on a daily basis?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
what time do you start?
How long have I been here today? This is typical Monday, right? It's funny, and I like the dynamic of the family. I think it's a pretty funny, chaotic relationship that they all have going on, which played out even more throughout the episode. So, Tommy and Rachel go to the bar, and he explains probably the only part of the episode that I feel like the last one where he is explaining the wind turbine, and he had just the great piece of it was very well spoken. These are the different things that oil goes into, or petroleum products go into. This one was whenever he was explaining like kind of booms and busts and the price of oil, and that was one of the things that
2020.
Yeah, 2020. He was talking about. I think he said it needs to stick between $60 and $90 a barrel. $78 a barrel was what he said it was.
That's the sweet spot.
That was the sweet spot,
which is pretty accurate, I think, and especially like in the Permian Basin. I think people would say like 70 is good, but we'd like it a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Because there is such a thing as going too high on the oil.
Absolutely.
But yeah, 78. I wonder where they got that number.
There's like 5 or 6 different places in the past few episodes where I'm like, oh, they were well coached on this. Like they had some pretty good.
They went further than Ask Jeeves.
That's right. That's exactly right. I thought that was pretty good. And then he did mention 2020 price of oil being worthless, and again played out with evidently their family lost everything during that, which is
Is that where the $500,000 debt came from?
I feel like it was. Like, do you think it was because of that? Because they really made it. They're like, oh, we lost everything. We lost everything. And I'm like, how heavily invested were you in? Like, I mean, I can see it happening. I guess for the independent landman that maybe so tied in with like his boss of maybe they were drilling wells together, or maybe they were doing something. But that's very very heavily.
So at a family gathering this last week, I was minding my own business, probably watching Elf with the nieces or nephews or something like that. And I hear my dad's voice out of nowhere go, well, Jerris is a landman. And so I had to wander into the other room, and he's talking with in-laws, and they were talking about the TV show. And so my dad was introducing, like, well, here's a real live landman. And then, of course, I posed for, I posed for pictures, signed autographs, the whole deal. Well, we were talking, somehow that $500,000 debt came up, and somebody said that they heard in the first episode that he tried to go out on his own and ended up losing stuff.
No, they definitely would. They definitely would. Yeah. So the girls moving forward with it. The girls are turned away at the country club, and they're like, "We've still got to drink, so we've got to go to whatever watering hole this two-bit town has. We're on spring break." He's still talking in the bar. Now we go out to the field where Cooper, and I wanted to show you even on my notes. I literally wrote, I said, finally a day of work without a life-altering event. Now, we were only halfway through the episode.
Okay, so that was before.
It was, yes. So it kind of showed like what looked like a full day because it went like full working, and he's like, everything's going good. And then even the sun's going down. And two thoughts, I was like,
he made it.
If this is a time lapse, number one, he made it. And I was like, that's great. All right, we've got an episode where it's no catastrophe. And then I was like, also, if this is equating the time that they are sitting at the bar, like by the time we kick back to them, they are going to be gone. Which, I mean, didn't happen, but we kind of saw how all that played out. But yes, wrote that way too soon. And later on in the evening, it kind of gets into it. They kicked back to the bar, though. Angela turned out at the bar, seeing Tommy and the lawyer, Rebecca, I think, right? So He's telling her all of this stuff, and all of a sudden, ex-wife Angela, quite the jealous type, we find out, comes over, and they kind of banter back and forth, and she invites them over to dinner. Tommy, miserable with this whole process, says a couple of good lines of the episode of how, number one, miserable he was with his ex-wife, number two, miserable that she would invite them over to eat with them, hates every single bit of this, but begrudgingly does it anyway, So that you knew that was going to kind of turn sour at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now it kicked us back to the field, and where we assume that the night is over, they're going to come down off the rig, things are fine. No, not at all. Now we should just change Cooper's nickname in this too. I mean, he's the Angel of Death at this point.
He is the Angel of Death, the Grim Reaper.
He is the Grim Reaper. He has only been on the job for like less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, everybody around him died.
Everybody either gets absolutely blown to smithereens or they lose a hand. I mean, it's a daily occurrence at this point. Wherever Cooper goes, just death and dismemberment follow at this point, right?
Which is kind of the way it was when I tried working roustabout stuff. I was a tremendous klutz. Like, it's a wonder myself or somebody around me did not die or was seriously injured. And I was just really, really bad at it.
And it makes you think, honestly, and I know the training of anyone going out to, like, offshore rigs, rigs in any of the basins now, the training is such a huge part of it that it also goes to show how important that is for every single person and the young people coming onto it too.
I don't know what they do in offshore life, but I can tell you onshore life, there is no training. Like what you saw in the show about Cooper's training, that's training.
Where they were like up there,
just show up. Yeah, show up and don't die. And someday you will maybe know how to do some of this. So that's the training. Don't die.
That's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't and you've got all your fingers and toes.
I do. Yeah. Yep. Have my digits. Yep.
Well, sadly for all of us, Antonio does not. And Antonio was lifted just lifeless to the hospital. The hospital just knows they're coming at this point. They're just like,
Cooper has been speed dial.
he hasn't.
I got another one.
Dale, the petroleum engineer, was like, that's great that happened. Keep this thing going. Keep the rig moving. So they had maybe 30 seconds of downtime before they just kicked it into gear again. And just kept moving on. I noticed a lot in this episode too, between like the girls at the bar and the guys. They threw in a lot of like analogies.
Oh,
Like they were saying,
how astute of you.
I think they're gonna do a lot of that.
Okay.
Like the ex-wife was like, oh, we were like oil and water, and then another time somebody says she's like he needs chaos, he needs blowouts in his life, and I think it's cool that they throw stuff like that in. I think they're not going to stop. I think that's going to be kind of a key for the rest of the episodes. But that's what we got to get.
Well, we got lessons in life on top of it.
I think the biggest lesson and the thing that I related most to was I looked at, so Angela gets a case of the SADS with it, and now she's back for, who knows, the doctor that she's married to, or the guy that owns the hospitals or something like that. At this point, I'm sure he has texted her a few times and is like, where are you?
That's true. Is she FaceTiming him as much as she was FaceTiming her ex-husband when she wasn't around?
One can only assume. But she's got a case of the SADS now, and she's sobbing that she has thrown away part of her life, and she's back from the bar, really living with all these regrets. Tommy comes back in. He has said such absolutely just terrible things about this relationship. This would never work. It was the worst part of my life and all this stuff. And she's like, should we get back together? And he's like, you know what? Let's give it another shot. I felt like, I was like, this is looking in the 20-year-old Drew Hopkins mirror of what's the worst thing for me, maybe to get back with an ex. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Well, it makes for good television.
It makes for fantastic television. So the happy couple is reunited. Probably no drama for the next 7 episodes. It's going to be just...
Yeah, it gets boring from here, right?
It's just boring relationship stuff, They
don't start drinking till 4:30 now.
That's right. They're just showing them going to the HEB together.
That's right.
Slowly pushing the cart down the aisle.
Yes. Have you ever been to an HEB?
In Midland. Yeah, it's actually really nice.
I've heard about HEBs. Obviously, Oklahoma does not have HEBs. Nowhere outside of Texas has them that I'm aware of.
No, they're super nice.
And I finally went to one in Midland, and it blew my freaking mind. Like, I get the hype.
It's really good.
I think I was texting everybody I knew and said, I get the hype.
Love finds a way is basically, what we need to end on. But then we go to the final shot of the show, and that is Cooper back on the rig, basically smoking that cigarette after he got through another fantastic day of work. And he's sitting there with the cousin of one of the rig hands that passed away on the previous episode.
Right.
He gets a phone call, and it's from one of the widows, and it looks like she's already kind of thinking about it. So at least she had time to grieve.
It does kind of give me the EHE, though. That's a little weird.
What's it been, you think? Has it been 7 days?
I don't even know.
There's no possible way.
She needed a date.
I mean, she's like, schedule's clear.
I hate going to funerals myself. You want to go with me?
I feel really uncomfortable with this for some reason. I don't know why. So he takes the phone call, walks away, before he gets the, hey, who is that? You know her. It's no big deal. So yeah, the end of episode 4, we've got a lot of things to unpack for sure from that. But it definitely sounds like Cooper's going to be on this rig for a while.
He's found his family.
He's not exactly excited about it. The daughter was way more excited than he was when we found out that year-old mom and dad were back together. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. We will be back here next week.
Yes, we will.
we have a few more special guests in store for the show. We're very excited to be able to share those with you. Safe travels to you.
Thank you.
As you go back, we hope to get you back in the said studio before too long. But
yeah.
Anything else before we go?
So we could use some help. We're not exactly clear if the lawyer's name is Rachel or Rebecca. So let us know which one it is.
And did we have any reviews this week? I feel like I would be doing a disservice there.
Yeah, so we did get a couple. I mean, we've graduated from the point now to where we don't necessarily have to just feed on text messages and other social media comments. We can actually see the reviews that have been left by people. So we did get one on YouTube. Keep it going, gents. Love the banter and keep getting on the old pros for war stories, which today we featured a city, but yeah, we've got some folks in the mix that are going to be coming on soon. And we got our first review from Spotify.
Tell me what it is.
Boring with 4 exclamation points. You know, somebody just taking the time to say boring is, you could shove that off as anything. But if they're throwing on 4 exclamation points, I feel like they meant it.
No, 3.
But honestly, I'm just flattered that they listened.
No.
Yeah.
We really do it.
I hope they're on again this time. And
we get that.
That would be awesome if there was a follow-up comment that said still boring. Because in that case, we know that at least they're listening.
I mean, yeah, you keep just adding an exclamation point each time. Right?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's funny. Well, another episode in the books, Jerris.
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Thank you guys so much. This has been the Real Deal Landman podcast, and we will see you next week.
See ya.